Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the March version of the Azure Partner community call. Just wanted to make sure everyone can hear me. So if you're able to hear me, can you type in the window, the message window, the color shoes you're wearing today? All right, we got black, brown, none. So good, that means you can hear me. All right, awesome, thank you. At this point, I do want to let you know that we will be recording the call. So if anybody does not want to be recorded for whatever reason, feel free to drop at this time. We will be posting the call afterwards on our Yammer network at aka.ms/cloudinfrapartner. So that will be available, as well as the presentation will be available there. So I want to go ahead and get started. This is the second of a two-part series on SAP. Last month we talked about the architecture of Azure and how it supports SAP, specifically SAP HANA. So what we want to do this month is drill deeper into the SAP HANA solution. And to do that, we've actually brought in someone specifically from SAP who supports the go-to-market initiatives around SAP HANA. So excited to have them on the call here today. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn things over to them. All right, Venkata.
Okay, thank you. Hello, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for taking time to join this session. So my name is Venkata Giduturi. I'm the Senior Director at SAP Labs, and I'm part of the SAP HANA product strategy and go-to-market team. So I do have a lot of content, and I'll try to be as brief as possible given the time constraint that we have. Try to provide as much information as I can in the next 45, 50 minutes or so that we will have some opportunity for Q&A. So with that said, the broad agenda that I have today is why SAP HANA Platform and why are we doing this, and then get into the details of what it is and what you can do with it. And then there is a whole lot of information, very technical information made available in the presentation, which I won't be able to cover, but at least we are making sure that that information is available to you with the necessary links where you can find the additional pieces of information. So with that said, I mean, we all understand the dilemma with the current IT landscapes. I mean, typically you tend to have a lot of transactional systems for an end-to-end business process requirements, and these transactional systems are supported by the necessary analytical systems where it is more of a transactional data getting copied into the analytical system so that it will provide the necessary reporting requirements to your business organization. And it is very often the case that if you, let's say, have about 1 terabyte of transactional data, it is very common to see customers having anywhere from 3 terabyte to probably 20 terabyte of analytical systems supporting it, depending on the various business unit requirements. And despite all this effort, still the information is kind of does not provide a complete end-to-end visibility, and there is always time lag in terms of when that information is required versus when that information is made available, and it's very hard to get real-time insights. So this is fundamentally the problem that we have been hearing from our customers. I mean, just to give you a little bit background on SAP, those who are not familiar, we are the largest enterprise software in the company, and what it means is the enterprise software that we deliver to our customers across the regions, across the industry, across the lines of business. The easy way to understand is probably a better way to make sense is 76% of world's GDP transactions basically flows through SAP applications. So that kind of gives you a sense of the business critical nature that we support through our application portfolio. That kind of basically gives you why our systems are, why such a high demanding in nature in the enterprise world. So given that market competition that we are seeing out there, and it is the expectations from our business side is the management likes to see a complete end-to-end visibility at anything, anytime, anywhere. So this is kind of the demands that we have been receiving. And all along, our applications have been running on the traditional database engines, such as Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, etc. And for that matter, Sybase ASU, which is our own RDA BMS in that portfolio of the category. And we are not able to meet the business requirements. So that is kind of fundamentally what led us to thinking into a different way of delivering the data management. That's what basically essentially led to the innovation of SAP HANA Platform. So in a nutshell, the way we basically looking at the new approach is instead of focusing more on the, keeping the lights on, where pretty much major chunk of the IT budgets are spent on keeping the lights on versus a very small amount available on the innovation side, we basically want to flip that proportion so that organizations will have to worry less about keeping the lights on and focus more on the innovation side. So with that said, if you look at the technology innovation that is currently happening today, if you fundamentally look at the overall IT infrastructure into three layers, let us say application on the top, database in the middle, and hardware at the bottom, we have seen a lot of innovation in the application platform side, right? Compared to what it was in the past, now it is very easy to build and deploy an application. This is kind of a trend that we have been seeing, especially in the platform as a service. Since you are the Microsoft partners, I'm sure you kind of pretty much see it on the Azure service offerings. Likewise, if you look at the underneath infrastructure side, the kind of memory, CPU, architecture, storage, etc., it is a lot different than what it was in the past. The technologies available now, they're a lot more faster and a lot more cheaper and a lot more compact in nature. So this is basically what has helped us to accelerate our innovation strategy, taking advantage of in-memory technology to build our data platform. So, at a very high level, the infrastructure that we currently run SAP HANA on, here I'm probably kind of jumping back and forth, but just to give you inside the kind of SAP HANA hardware, which I'll give you a little more details in the following slides. We are talking about SAP HANA appliance or a server, whatever you call it, leveraging huge chunks of memory. And as of today, the largest HANA server that you can have is the 20 terabyte memory, and with CPU cores up to 768, which is basically 8-socket system, each socket having 4 CPUs, and each CPU having up to 24 cores. So this is based on the Intel EX E7, and currently we have a lot of servers pretty much on the Broadwell, and we will continue to work with our partners to build, take advantage of the latest Intel EX E7 versions, probably V5 later. And also in future, we will have the NVM, the non-volatile memory. What it means is the data in the memory will remain even after you shut down the server. So that way, because here everything, the entire database is in the memory, we want to basically make sure that the database restart times will be a lot faster, and also we were able to address more memory for a lower number of CPU cores. So this is the kind of architecture how we eventually see. So with that said, let me give you insight into what is the fundamental problem with the existing IT infrastructures that you see. So this diagram kind of gives you the latency between various technology components within the server, right? And when you look at the traditional IT systems, very often the major chunk of the time is pretty much spent on the IO, and it is very common to see database operation spending probably anywhere from 40 to 70% of the CPU computing time basically waiting for the IO. That is fundamentally the reason why, given the data loads that enterprises wanted to manage through their transactional or analytical systems, are not able to scale in meeting the necessary reporting SLA requirements, right? The fundamental reason being the latency. If you look at the IO with a traditional disk, it takes about 10 million nanoseconds. Whereas if you leverage SSD, you will have a much more better throughput, but it is still about 200,000 nanoseconds. Whereas the information transfer between DRAM and a CPU, it is barely 100 nanoseconds, so which is pretty much quick. So here the idea is, instead of having the database in the storage level, if you can have the entire database sitting in the memory itself, that is where you can basically deliver, helps you deliver the real-time experiences. Having said that, obviously the question rises, right? If I have a 10 terabyte of storage type of database, do I need a 10 terabyte of memory? Absolutely not. I'll give you more details in the following slides. Because of the in-memory, the way the data gets stored in the DRAM is a lot compressed, and we make use of the the columnar structure tables, and the data compression is also very high. So you typically see anywhere from 6 to probably 10 or even more high-level compression, purely from a data footprint point of view. Apart from that, because it's all in the memory, you no longer need indexes, you no longer need aggregates. I do have a couple of examples later. So these are some of the fundamental ways why we are basically taking advantage of the in-memory technology to drive the next generation innovations on top of the database platforms. So by the way, feel free to post your questions in the chat room, and I'll try to address them as I go through this conversation. So with that said, let me give you a brief insight into SAP HANA Platform. It is very often that we use the term platform and database in a pretty interchangeable manner. In fact, SAP HANA is much more than a database. It is a complete platform. So that is fundamentally the reason why we call it SAP HANA a platform. And if you look inside, it does have a complete ANSI compliant database services, what you see at the bottom of the picture. Then apart from that, it does have built-in application lifecycle management. That means it has a web server, it has integration into the application development technology so that you can develop and deploy application inside SAP HANA. It does come with a lot of advanced processing engines like spatial, graph, predictive. These are all built inside SAP HANA, so you are no longer looking at, having these engines installed separately to get the benefit of the respective processing capabilities. Likewise, SAP HANA also has the complete integration and quality services, especially whenever you talk about data management in the current world, you have a diverse sources of data and different types of data types. And it's very often the case that because of the data distribution requirements, you need to ensure that whenever the data flows, you need to ensure about the quality and you need to have extensive integration, especially into the Hadoop framework. So these are all the capabilities are completely built inside SAP HANA platform. So in a way, how it looks like is, way back when we had our mainframes where the entire processing was inside, and it was kind of limiting the innovation those days, and that is where the client-server technologies came out, and all of a sudden the innovation kind of opened up, and then we basically saw proliferation of client-server technologies where you had database, application layer, end user experiences, everything pretty much spread across multiple technology layers, and that's how we were able to scale. And now we have a new challenge given the data proliferation. We are not able to, scale with that kind of client-server architecture, and that is where, again, given that you are able to put everything inside the memory, now you have, again, an opportunity to consolidate your application code sitting right next to the data, all in the memory, and also the other processing capabilities, where you can basically pretty much perform any operation simultaneously on the one single copy of data. So essentially what it means is, by leveraging SAP HANA Platform, you can greatly simplify your analytical data system requirements. That means you can perform both transactional and analytical data loads on the same copy of the data simultaneously. So that it also not only simplifies your IT landscape, but also improves the productivity from an end user point of view, because they are getting the business insights as the business happening in real time. So this is essentially a platform for all the applications of any type, and taking advantage of the technology benefits on the Intel architecture, which is basically the commodity hardware, right? So with that said, let me provide you a deep dive into the various services that I have highlighted within the platform. To begin with, database services. As I said, it is completely ANSI compliant, ACID compliant platform technology. So it has all the SQL compatibilities that you typically see in any database engine. It supports both row and columnar table structures, and the applications that are currently building on top of SAP HANA Platform fundamentally takes advantage of the columnar table structure, because that is what is more suitable for in-memory. And here the advantage with the columnar data structure is it provides the necessary compression, and it also eliminates the requirement for a lot of indexes, because the columnar structure itself is pretty much in a indexed format. And SAP HANA Platform also provide the necessary database administration tools like any other database engine, from a user management point of view for installation of the patch or ability to backup, recovery. So these are all the standard practices. And the beauty of HANA Platform is when you install or configure your HANA server, you no longer have to configure it whether the HANA is for transactional systems or an analytical system. So it is basically one single system which can basically deliver both. So there is a lot of tuning that typically happens within traditional database engines. It is no longer required within the SAP HANA. Willie, are there any questions? If I can pause for a moment.
Sure. Thanks, Venkata. There is one question that we have, and it's in relation to the previous slide where we looked at the SAP HANA platform. The question is, can you use existing services along with SAP HANA? For example, if customer already has another tool that they're using for processing services, can that integrate with the SAP HANA platform?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll cover that when I talk about the integration and the quality services. Yes, you can. So the simple answer to that is you do not have to, rewrite your applications for everything. One is you can always lift and shift. The other way is you can continue to have your applications as it is, and you can integrate with SAP HANA through JDBC and various other mechanisms. So certainly it can be done.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's the only question we have for now.
Okay, thank you. So moving on the application services, as I said, SAP HANA provides built-in web application server, and it also provides a framework for complete application lifecycle management. What it means is you, with the help of integrated IDE environments, you can develop and deploy applications inside HANA. And you are not restricted to SQL or a PL SQL type of applications anymore. You can have a Java or a JavaScript or Node.js or C++. Any of these applications can be deployed within SAP HANA. And what we call it is Access Engine, Access C. And we also, with the latest SAP HANA 2.0, we also have something called Access Advanced Engine, where you can even take that application component outside of HANA and scale it by deploying it on a different server itself. So it really, in a nutshell, simplifying the way you can not only build your applications, which is anyway the current technologies provide, but the way you can develop and deploy inside SAP HANA. The reason why it is so important or so simple is, as I said, because the application does not require indexes or the tuning. In fact, it also simplifies the database schema requirements. The major advantage with SAP HANA is you also have the ability to reduce the number of lines of code while building the applications, because the general stats that we typically hear from the industry is whenever you build an app, typically 30% of the time is spent on the business logic, and about 70% of the time is spent on the performance side, making sure that the application runs as per the performance requirements set within the SLA. And here with SAP, majority of the performance issues are taken care of because that is the built-in characteristic of the platform, given its advantage or due to the in-memory technology. Now you can basically spend more time on the business logic, and also given the ability to simplify your database schema, you also have the ability to simplify your code structure. So that way there is a lot of benefit that you can gain in rapidly developing the applications on top of SAP HANA platform. Then moving on to processing services. You know what, instead of staying here, let me go to the respective. Okay, I'll come back to the database here in a moment. You know what, apologize guys, let me go back to the database and revisit this topic so that you are better informed on what is all supported within the database services in the interest of time. So as I said, SAP HANA platform supports both columnar and row structure table types, and that is what essentially helps us to have both transactional and analytical data loads within the same systems. And because of it's all in memory, you can perform both operations on the same copy of data. And it is a multi-core. As I said initially, these platforms typically have lots of CPU cores. And here the idea is your CPU core should be able to pretty much consume every bit of the juice. That means even if your CPU core goes to 100%, it is not an issue. Your application still runs. Here, the idea within SAP HANA platform is compared to the traditional systems. In a traditional systems, we tend to keep the CPU utilization under 70%, just to ensure that it does not run into any application errors. Whereas in the SAP HANA, since the whole data is in the memory, 100% CPU utilization is very common, so it is no longer an issue. I mean, we are not saying that you should be able to run 100% all the time, but all we are saying is even in the case of peak loads, it is not an issue. It does provide you the advanced compression. As I said earlier, because the way the data is stored at the memory layer level, you no longer have to follow the typical disk-based architectures to store the data, whether they are files or segments or the block structure. Within the block structure, you need to make sure that certain empty space is left out so that it can accommodate the new updates, etc. So all those architectures are no longer relevant for SAP HANA platform. And since it's all in the memory, so you basically get a very high level compression. SAP HANA also provides you the multi-tenancy. What it means is similar to the SQL Server. You can have multiple databases within the same server. Okay, and then SAP HANA does support the multi-tier storage. What it means is because SAP HANA is in memory, it is ideally suited for the application where the data performance requirements are pretty much needs to have the real-time activities, right? And having said that, not every data set in an enterprise is requires real-time access. That means the data that gets accessed very often. So what we have done is we have attached an storage-based components to SAP HANA, both what we call is a dynamic tiering as well as the Hadoop-based SAP HANA Vora, what we call it, the Hadoop-based infrastructures, where you can move the data between HANA and this disk-based storage layers. Yet, from the end-user application point of view, it is a single table, it is a same query, whereas the HANA basically takes care of the data processing across the layers. And it has the automated way, depending on business rules, ability to move the data between HANA and the other disk-based components. So that way you can scale to petabyte scale architectures. It does provide the data modeling. Here, the beauty of data modeling is, in fact, one of the fundamental reasons why SAP HANA is so successful is the calculation views. What it means is, typically when you write a SQL query, it is very often the case that if you have a table join, let's say across 4 or 5 tables, and if any of these couple of tables happens to be pretty large, it is very often the case that you run snapshot to world, or basically the query never returns, right? And the beauty of SAP HANA is you can have a very complex joins. Probably you can have a query that runs across 3 pages, and still it is able to deliver the performance because you can write most of those computations on the fly within a SQL. So we have a robust data modeling tool that is built into SAP HANA, starting from your DDL management all the way to the calculation views, meta model mechanism. Everything is done, available. Then the openness, it is, I think this is probably corresponds to the question that I had earlier. It provides the ODBC, JDBC, I mean, all the traditional open interfaces that are available out there in the market for any application to interact with a database is possible. Okay, and like any other database platform, from the data center readiness point of view, it does have the high availability, disaster recovery. We also have something called a scale up and scale out architectures, which I'll cover very shortly. So that is primarily on the database services side. Then moving on to the processing services. As I said, these services are built inside SAP HANA. So let us say if you want a graph database capabilities, you do not have to have a separate database built for the graph requirement. It is already inside. That means, let us say if you have a customer table available within SAP HANA, now you can basically build the relationships on top of it and store it as a graph structure within SAP HANA itself. So you no longer need a separate database for it. And you have something, a SQL-like query language, even to access the graph data. So within the same query, you can access the graph as well as the traditional table. So this is how we have integrated these advanced processing engines within SAP HANA. So Spatial is another great capability that our customers are basically taking advantage of. And there are also a lot of ISV applications coming from Esri and another company called Luciad. They recently had released a software built with Lufthansa Airlines where they were able to track. In fact, if you go to YouTube and Google for SAP HANA, Lufthansa, Luciad, Lucid, you basically come across their video, which is, a beautiful application that was built for an aircraft traffic control in real time. So likewise, we have a predictive engines built inside. This is, again, the major focus in the IT industry across the customer base that we are seeing, because the reporting is no longer about, looking through the rear view mirror in terms of what has happened in the past. Now the customers also want to know how the business is going to perform in the upcoming years. So these are basically essentially a lot of functionalities that we have made available as a built-in capabilities within SAP HANA. So in the interest of time, let me move on. Application services, as I said, it does have a web server. It has a complete application lifecycle management where you can build and deploy applications inside SAP HANA. And SAP HANA also has HTML5 or the UI5 based technologies called Fiori, where you can build the necessary front-end user technologies so that you will have the same look and feel experiences for your applications, irrespective of the device that you are accessing from. Okay, and then the integration capabilities. Again, as I said earlier, it does provide ability to have data spread across multiple sources, and still you can run the either move the data into SAP HANA through our built-in ETL technologies and the data and also ensuring the data quality while moving the data. And one of the key capabilities of SAP HANA in this area is what we call it is the Smart Data Access SDA. What it does is when you typically do a distributed query, you tend to basically, the traditional technologies work in such a way that the data gets copied into the source system, or at least brought into the source system, then the computation happens, and the result is given to the end user. With Smart Data Access, what SAP HANA does is it is intelligent enough to distribute that computing to the remote source. Let us say if the query is written in such a way that the computation makes sense, it makes sense to have the computation done in the remote system and fetch only the data that is required for the primary query into the HANA. So SAP HANA is basically intelligent enough to take care of such kind of distributed computing. So that is, really a beauty behind it. Apart from that, SAP HANA platform, as I said, provides all the integrations into Hadoop and Hadoop Spark frameworks. So with that said, let me give you some insight into how we are driving the simplicity and agility. I think this is one topic that is really relevant, especially if you're talking about transactional systems. As I said earlier, you can always lift and shift your applications from one traditional databases engine onto SAP HANA. You can always do that. You can certainly gain some performance improvements. Having said that, if you really optimize your applications to take advantage of the SAP HANA, you basically see something like 10,000 times or even 10,000 times of performance improvements, and at the same time simplifying your overall database footprint, etc. Right? So here is an example how we are simplifying our own SAP applications, our flagship product ERP. Now the latest version is called the S4, which is basically completely reinvented, and it is possible only on SAP HANA given its in-memory capabilities. So you can kind of basically see the schema simplicity, right? So you are not compromising on the functionality. It is still the same functionality and in fact much more. So in a traditional system, you have a lot of data points where you had to enter the data, process the data to perform your complete end-to-end business process, whereas the same business process can be achieved with a much more simpler schema. Here the reason being, you no longer have to have a strict normalization when you want to take advantage of the columnar structure tables, because the columnar structure table is efficient enough to ensure that those foreign key relationships are no longer necessary. So that way you are not only consolidating the schema into less number of tables, at the same time you can also perform more functionality because you are basically querying the data against a very few tables. So this is the way how we are driving the simplicity and agility. Remember, as I said earlier, now if you want to build an application on a complex schema versus a simpler schema, always writing an application for the same functionality on simpler schema is a lot easier and much more productive. Likewise, if you look at the transactional systems, how we are simplifying the overall the analytical requirements. In a traditional systems, you basically have a huge number of data sources, and you need to make use of all the ETL requirements to move the data into data warehouse. Then you build the necessary indexes, and then you build the aggregates on top of it. Then you make the data available to your end users. And it's very often the case that these ETL processes are pretty much run on a daily basis, and the reports are at least in 24 hours behind the schedule, behind the time, right? Because whatever is the transaction happening today, that will be made available through your data marts or data warehouse applications only the following day because of the huge ETL processes that are required. And also these ETL processes are not only time consuming, but also very IT intensive in a sense that it requires a lot of planning and resources to manage that, because the ETL itself is a different beast in itself. On top of it, the huge data management that one has to go through in building the indexes, aggregates, etc. So with SAP HANA, we are fundamentally eliminating those requirements. Okay. First of all, as I said earlier, in the in-memory technology, you no longer need indexes and aggregates. So you no longer need indexes because the data is already in the memory. So there is no delay in accessing the data. It's already there for the CPU to access and process. Likewise, there is no need to build the aggregates because all the calculations can happen on the fly in real time. Likewise, the data copy is basically optional because using the smart data access, a lot of that data can be accessed in real time. Again, we are not saying that we are completely eliminating the data copy, but you can greatly minimize so that you will have a much more simplified architecture. So that is how we are pretty much minimizing the IT complexity up to 90% or even more in the analytical side. So with these two combinations of simplicity, agility, and reduction of the complexity, you can basically run any applications on SAP HANA, both transactional and analytical in real time. Now, coming to the infrastructure side, SAP, what we call it is SAP appliances. By the way, these appliances are not sold by SAP. These are basically coming from our partners, what you see on the bottom of the screen here. Pretty much all the major vendors have a certified SAP HANA appliances. So the appliance term, in a way, is somewhat misleading in our context because we are not selling. But having SAP being a very conservative company, given the business critical nature of our applications, we wanted to make sure that we will have a close collaboration with our partners to make sure that the hardware that is configured meets the end user requirements. So that way, customer, partner, and SAP, it is a win-win situation for everybody. So that is fundamentally the reason why we started with this appliance journey, closely working with these partners. So as of today, we have appliances ranging from 128 GB memory all the way to 20 terabyte appliances. And we also have an ability to scale out, which I'll cover. So that way you come to know how you can basically scale beyond 20 terabyte. So this is on the appliance side. Now, since we are in the market for the past 5 years now, and we learned a lot from our customer experiences, and what we have done is we have relaxing the appliance standard requirements slowly. What it means is we have introduced something called a tailored data center integration. What it means is if a customer has an existing server or a network or a storage technologies lying in their data center and they are in the certified list, they can pretty much work with their hardware partners and build the appliance and deploy SAP HANA on top of it. So as we learn more and more, we are going to make the HANA hardware server requirements more and more relaxed so that it will be easy for the customers and partners to ensure that the HANA deployments will be a lot more simpler in the future. So let me take a pause there. Willie, any questions?
Hi, yes, we do have some questions. I'll start off with the first one. Does SAP HANA have data archival tools?
The data archival tools, typically they come from the SAP application side, because the SAP application side, we have a lot of data governance around it. So purely from SAP application point of view, the archiving is something you have to rely on the application side of the archiving technologies. Yes, we do have that. But if you are looking purely from a database point of view, the kind of archiving is pretty much like any other traditional approaches that you typically see at the database technology layer level. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple more questions. With the simplification realized with S4, are many customers, current customers, upgrading to S4? And if not, like, are there any reasons why they wouldn't upgrade with the enhancements that they would receive?
No, in fact, more and more customers are upgrading to S4. I believe, I do not have the exact number. So as of last year, I believe we had 3,000 or 4,000, and this year we are going to either double or maybe 5,000 or 6,000. So we are seeing a rapid adoption of S4 in our customer base.
Okay. Here's another question. Are there native hooks or paths for use of SSRS reporting from HANA?
Native hooks for SRS reporting. I do not know what exactly it means. If it is some sort of an application that it can interact with SAP HANA at the database level, as I said, it does have the JDBC, ODBC, I mean, all the interfaces. I'm not sure what exactly the SRS application is, so pardon me for my ignorance on that. But if it is an application level integration, yes, we do have all the hooks available.
Looks like some clarification there. I guess it's kind of describing hooks into Power BI.
Power BI, yes. The Power BI is supported. In fact, that's one of the things I thought of covering towards the end. Yes, Power BI is supported, and there is a document is also available on the Microsoft website. So if you search for Power BI SAP HANA, you'll come across a document.
Okay, great. And last question, I know with the last slide you mentioned making the implementation of SAP HANA on-prem a little bit simpler. How about the implementation of SAP HANA in the cloud, specifically the Azure cloud?
Okay, so if you can bear with me for a couple of minutes, I'll come to that slide.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So just moving on, probably another 5 minutes, and I'll try to wrap up, and happy to take additional questions. So SAP HANA does support multi-database containers, and this is, again, similar to what you see in SQL Server. And let me see if I have a slide for the scale out and scale out somewhere. Okay. Let me briefly cover the scale up and scale out architecture of SAP HANA. So today, whether it is on-premise or in the cloud, you can basically, of course, again, it all depends on the certification process that one has to go through to ensure that these deployment models are certified in the respective cloud environments. Okay. So scale up means the entire SAP HANA basically runs on a single hardware server. So if you need more capacity, if the hardware vendor permits it, you can always attach more memory and CPU sockets and disk, and you can continue to have larger size configuration of SAP HANA up to 20 terabyte. And these configurations continue to grow. I believe the next configuration probably we are going to see is a 24 terabyte and probably sometime in the future even 48 terabyte too. So that is the scale up, means it's all within one single server. Now, scale out means it is more of a high availability kind of a scenario. Let us say if you want to have your data spread across multiple nodes, one of the, I think the best scenario is in the case of analytical workloads, the largest node that is currently possible is 4 terabyte, because in the analytical loads, the amount of data access that you are going to have is pretty much sometimes even the major chunk of the data footprint that you have within your memory. So that is one of the reasons why the largest single node permitted at the moment is 4 terabyte, which I believe is going to go to 6 terabyte sometime soon. Now, if someone wants to have an analytical system of, let us say, 20 terabyte, what it means is they basically need 5 SAP HANA nodes of 4 terabyte each. Okay, and then you can always have one additional standby node. The way it happens is if any of the active nodes fail, then the standby node automatically takes over. So your application does not get interrupted except for the sessions that are attached to that node. So your application will be always up and running. And this is how you essentially take advantage of the scale out to not only increase the data capacity, but also high available. So that is the distinction between scale up and scale out. And even in the scale out, you can also have a multi-tenant architecture, which basically means that, let us say, if you have a database called A, if you want to spread across multiple nodes, you can have the tenant A1, A2, and A3. So everything is possible, and you can also move these tenants from one node to another. It's all possible. Okay. And from the data center readiness point of view, it does support system replication and disaster recovery. So it is basically data synchronization, both at the log level as well as at the data layer level. So today you can also have a geo clusters. I believe the maximum distance permitted to meet the SLA requirements, I believe, is 100 kilometers, something like that. So we do have some limitation, but apart from that, you can certainly have geographically different data centers and have the synchronization across them. And recently with SAP HANA 2.0, we have also introduced the SAP HANA Active. What it means is your standby node, you can use it for the read activities. So you can continue to use your primary node for all the activities, whether it's the data reads or writes or deletes, updates, whatever it is. And if you think that you can, if your primary system is heavily loaded, probably you are better off balancing some of the read activity on to the secondary nodes. So that way you'll have a better utilization of your HANA. Then you can always do so, and by leveraging the SAP HANA active read enablement capability. So here is what we have when it comes to SAP HANA on Microsoft Azure today. So we have SAP HANA on public Azure. The configuration supported is the Azure GS5 with 448 gig, and it is currently supported for the OLAP, the analytical workloads with BW for HANA, or even the native SQL applications if someone wants to run the analytics on top of it. Okay. And then we also have SAP HANA on Azure, large instances. These are called the colo data centers. I'm not sure who owns these data centers, but I believe Microsoft, and these are bare metal installations, and these data centers are connected to the public Azure through a very high bandwidth network, the dedicated networking channel. So these are the two options available, and I have posted the SAP notes here, and also the information pages on the Microsoft side. They provide you information into the various configurations possible through these SAP HANA options. So with that said, again, just to wrap up, SAP HANA is a platform for any type of application. So do not think that it is somehow limited to the SAP application portfolio itself. No, absolutely not. It is a platform, general IT platform. In fact, we would like to call it as a next generation IT platform to build any applications. So with that said, I think for you as a partner, especially if you are planning to position SAP HANA for your customers, those who are basically, for better lack of a term, married to Azure, I think there is a great opportunity to position SAP HANA as the real-time platform in the overall Azure end-to-end architecture for your end-user requirements. And again, you can always make use of your Power BI tools on top of SAP HANA. So this is a quick, in a nutshell, quick wrap-up on this topic. So with that said, I do have a lot of customer use cases and additional information available in this slide deck. And here are some of the links where you can find more information. So with that said, Willie, back to you if we have further questions on this topic.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. We got a couple more minutes, but we can extend this to make sure we answer all the questions that have come in. Looks like there's 4 that have come in. But if you do have to drop, again, we appreciate your time for joining. We'll get all these questions answered and then post the call recording on the Yammer site, aka.ms/cloudinfrapartner, within a day or two. All right, starting with the first question, Venkata. With recent announcements between SAP HANA and Azure, do you have use cases that take into context data sovereignty concerns?
Data sovereignty concerns. No, I mean, these are all, the data centers as per the industry compliance requirements. So, I mean, we do have several customers already running on Microsoft Azure. I think the major differentiation comes is whether customer can accommodate their application on public Azure or the Azure larger instances. I think that is the only thing. And when it comes to use cases, as I said, the public Azure supports BW, BW4, HANA, basically the OLAP workloads, and we expect to see the transactional workloads getting certified sometime soon. Whereas when it comes to larger instances, there are no restrictions. You can pretty much run any type of application. And for a transactional application, the largest node supported is 4 terabyte. I mean, here, remember, when I say 4 terabyte of transactional applications, you are essentially looking at probably anywhere from 15 to 30 terabyte of traditional transactional data sets. Likewise, for analytical applications, the SAP HANA is supported up to 30 terabyte in a scale-out architecture with a 2 terabyte nodes with 15 plus 1. That means 15 active and 1 standby node. Again, these are all based on the bring your own license model. That means the SAP HANA license comes from SAP, and you will leverage the Azure cloud for the HANA deployments.
Okay, great. Thank you. And you mentioned scale-out systems. That leads us to the next question. What is the performance impact of HANA scale-out systems due to overhead compared to scale-up?
Scale-up is always our preferred approach. Basically, always first consider the scale-up, and if the scale-up is not an option, then only look into the scale-out. Now, when it comes to performance overhead, the node-to-node communication is about 500 milliseconds instead of the 100 milliseconds that you typically see. But otherwise, for a transactional loads, you still don't see any issue.
Okay.
So again, here we are talking about a performance improvements of not 10 times or 100 times, basically thousands of times compared to what the traditional systems offer.
All right. And last question here. From a partner perspective, if we see an opportunity to leverage SAP HANA as part of a customer POC, are there SAP HANA Azure Labs technical environments that can be leveraged to showcase for a particular customer?
So, I mean, for a POC requirements, if you are getting access to SAP HANA, yeah, you'll have to work through Microsoft and SAP Salesforce. I mean, especially for SAP HANA, you'll have to work through the SAP rep. That's the only way. And if the customer is willing to look into SAP HANA, one recommendation I have is we have SAP HANA Express, which is a freely downloadable software available, which customer can run on a laptop or a desktop anywhere they like. But the thing is, it helps them to test the POC from a functionality point of view, but it does not guarantee the performance. So I just want to make sure that somehow SAP HANA Express not giving the performance gives a negative impact to the overall SAP HANA journey.
Okay, great. And we had 2 more questions come in just that quick. One is just kind of they want to understand the difference between when you say SAP HANA on public Azure versus SAP HANA on Azure, and I can chime in on that answer as well. Specifically speaking, SAP HANA on public Azure is utilizing VMs within Azure that are accessible. You'll see them in the calculator tool. But these are your standard instances, your G series, your A7, A8 series VMs that are currently available in the what we quote unquote public Azure. SAP HANA on Azure large instances. These are machines that we've created specific, or VMs that we've created specifically to handle the SAP HANA workload. And those are going to be more available through, they're going to be available only through customer EAs, but they're specifically geared to offer higher throughput and efficiency than your G series, specifically for SAP HANA, than your G series or your A7, A8 VMs. And the last question is basically if looking for resources to become an SAP partner, where is the best place to go?
So yeah, the recommendation is if you search for SAP Partner Edge, or if you go to saphana.com, there is a link to become a partner, and that is basically essentially the route to become a partner with SAP. It is basically a standard approach. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, again, everyone, thank you for your time, for joining the monthly partner community call. We'll do this again next month. And again, want to appreciate Venkata for taking time out, giving us a deeper dive into SAP HANA and the technology behind it. That was very informative for me. And again, the recording of this call will be available on our Yammer group in a day or two. The presentation that we've actually gone through, which has a tons more information, is currently available on the Yammer site at aka.ms/cloud infra partner. All right, thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.